Yeah, it is another episode of the Autumn Windbags. RJ Clifford, Juan Soto. Let's have some fun today. Rain goes down, dogs chase cats, and the Raiders always lose when RJ attends a football game. Death, taxes, and the RJ curse.
I told you before you even went. I told you when you went to the Giants game, was it last year?
Giants was 2 years ago.
2 years ago. It was Tennessee was last year. I said, dude, you're total mush. You need to stop going to games.
I'm never going to a game again, ever. I'm never going to a Raider game for the rest of my life because every time we go, we lose. Now, I know that this is like not the best example of a curse because, like, you know, it's the Chiefs for what? 9-point favorites. You know, it's the Chiefs. Like, they got a history doing pretty well against us. So it's not like, all right, we had this one in the bag, but kind of how it happened and how it just consistently happens. People say don't believe in curses. Oh, you're superstitious. Like, you come up. It's mathematically impossible for the Raiders to have lost this many games in a row every time I attend. Like, it's about, so like I went with my wife, and she was like, oh, what am I gonna wear? Because it's gonna be cold, but it's indoors and blah blah blah. And she has this like she calls it like a shell, where it's almost like what the coaches wear a little bit, where it's like a material. It's like a pullover, not a hoodie. It's not a jacket. It's like a shell, right? She's like, I had the shell. You know, I had that when it rained that one game, and I was like, when it rained that one game, that was when we were in college to see them versus the Chiefs. You want to guess who won that game too? Like, this has been going on 20 years.
Damn.
Since I was at San Francisco State. Now, in fairness, we did when I went to Qualcomm Stadium. That's how long it's been. That was later. That was several years later. So the streak hasn't been going on that long. But in all the decades and decades of me going to games, I think I've seen the Raiders win 4 times in decades of going to games.
I've actually witnessed the Raiders beat the Chiefs in Arrowhead, and I was scared for my life leaving that place.
Were you talking trash? Is that why?
I was excited.
Uh-huh.
I was excited, and it was a freaking good game. It was cold as hell. I think it was in December. I've never been that cold in my life. It wasn't wet. It wasn't like that kind of cold. It was just dry and cold. I was like, damn, not a fart of wind anywhere. It was just stagnant, stale, cold air. Just sit still, cold air. Like, damn, it's freaking cold, man. And we won the game, and I was like, hell yeah. I was like, and I was looking around. I'm like,
What are Chiefs fans gonna do? Throw barbecue sauce?
There's a lot of them, dude. I'm telling you, one person won't do anything. 10. Yeah, they might do something.
They get brave pretty quick.
Yeah, when there's 10 of them, yeah. There was like I could probably count in my section. There was maybe 3 Raider fans.
It was probably 65% Chiefs at the game, I would say.
Yeah, that's what I said when I saw it.
I sent you a picture that was like over 70, like pushing like well into the 70s, because that was like kind of like their tunnel and stuff. So I picked their section to make it look worse, but like at the other side, but it was still like 50-50 on the good side, and then like 70%. Like it was brutal.
I said it was about 60-40.
I'm thinking of testing my my curse. I want to go to like a Texas Tech Raiders game and see if they'll lose. Like when they're like 20-point favorites against some like D2 school.
Dude, freaking Big 12 football is brutal, man.
And see if they lose. You know, is there like a high school team called the Raiders? Is there like a Pop Warner? Is there a Pee Wee hockey team called the Raiders that I could go and like buy a jersey for, buy a ticket for, and watch, and then just to see them lose like 10-0? I'm really curious to see how far this goes.
You're a mush, dude. I'm telling you right now.
It's uncanny.
Every time you go to a game, the game itself is 50-50, but the probability of it happening in sequence, it just exponentially gets like less and less probable each time you go.
Imagine flipping a coin 20 times in a row, and you call heads every time, and it's tails every time.
It's tails every time.
What's happening? This is happening to me.
That's rough, man. That's rough business right there.
I gotta see how strong my powers are. I'm gonna do some serious scientific experiments.
The powers of the mush.
Not at the Raiders game, because we know exactly what happens.
Yeah, don't do that.
So the Chiefs took us down Sunday. 14-point lead to start. got outscored 31-3 to end the game. So if Antonio Pierce doesn't get this job, I guess I'm partially responsible because I went to this one game. Just a weird, just this way. The Raiders had 0 turnovers, 0 penalties. Somehow Farva was the highest rated quarterback in the NFL. Somehow, some way.
I wouldn't say somehow. He did a really good job, man.
But he was thoroughly outplayed practically by Patrick Mahomes and had a 10-point higher QBR. Weird.
I'll disagree with that and just finish your thought and I'll tell you why.
And Josh Jacobs had 100 yards rushing and a touchdown. And still we got blown out. It was a blowout. We got blown out at home to a division rival. And I think of like earlier this season, especially last season, we had all those leads that we lost, right? Broke records for blowing leads. And we're like Josh McDaniels. You blame more on Derek Carr. I blame more Josh McDaniels. Neither one of them are there. And we're still doing it. And we're still doing it. I was going to say like, oh man, this really hurts Antonio Pierce's chances of, not that he's completely out of the woods of being the head coach. Not that it was a done deal or that he's got no chance now. I was like, oh, that kind of hurts him a little bit. Like, does it? Because it seems to be no matter who the coach is, who the quarterback is, these Raiders are going to blow big leads.
Yeah, man. So the game was a lot closer than you might think. Okay. It came down to red zone efficiency. The Chiefs were 3 for 4 in the red zone touchdowns. We were 1 for 3. One of them was a missed field goal. Another one was a 4th down. So it was that close. So look, just to show you how close it was. Okay. First downs, 20. Here's another thing: 23-16 first downs. That is a little skewed because of the long Josh Jacobs run. We didn't need to get as many first downs to get that scoring drive.
Yeah.
But total plays, each team had 58 total plays. Total yards, 360 for the Chiefs, 358 for the bad guys. Mm-hmm. Each had 10 total drives. Exact same yards per play, 6.2 yards per play. So everything was pretty dang even. The only thing that's a big discrepancy are going to see is penalties. They had 4 for 40 yards. We had 0. But their red zone trips to touchdowns, 3 for 4. And we were 1 for 3. And those 2 times that we didn't score touchdowns, that's the difference in the game because we didn't get any points.
When you don't have, like, normally it's like, what's the big thing when a game is close statistically, but then it turns into kind of a blowout points wise? Normally turnovers. It's kind of the big standard operating procedure. That's the culprit, right? When all these things are super close and you're still getting blown out, there's always a reason, right? There's always a reason why. And red zone being it's one of the bigger reasons. My big thing was, what does this do for Antonio Pierce's chances? Because I'm thinking, okay, blowing a lead, that's generally on the coach. I feel like that's I think that's more under the coach's umbrella than most things. But the Raiders keep doing it. But the Raiders just keep doing it. And to have, because on the flip side, right, it was a very well-coached game. 0 penalties. I think it's like the second time since like 2000 or something. The Raiders, the most penalized team in the NFL by far, got 0. That's a miracle. That is God himself reaching through the clouds into Allegiant Stadium and touching the referee on the head. Like, that doesn't happen. 0 turnovers for a very turnover-heavy offense. Like, all these really well-coached things, but you still got blown out. So I'm wondering, like, what does this do for AP's chances? Like, how much the loss is a loss, and it's an L. But I think how the W's and L's come are part of the story. And this one's the hardest one to digest on how bad it hurts Antonio Pierce. So
when you're the head coach, everything falls down to you, right? It's all your responsibility. Responsibility and fault are 2 different things, right? Is it his fault that the play calling was pretty iffy? No, because he didn't call the plays. But it's his responsibility because he's in charge. The offensive coordinator, Coach Bo, reports to him. So Is it his fault? I wouldn't say his fault, but is it definitely his responsibility? So we have 2 games in a row with questionable play calls, right? Some people might say that a missed field goal is just as good as a turnover. I tend to agree with that. Some people think that missing it on fourth down is just as good as a turnover. I agree with that. We were 0 for 2. So that there's basically 3 turnovers right there.
Yeah.
So there's the skimming, like what ESPN does when they cover the Raiders, right? They just kind of skim everything. And then there's actually taking a look at the game and what happened. We were in position to score more. We stopped ourselves from doing it because of missed field goals, not getting on the fourth down. Now, why we didn't get it on fourth down is, again, up for debate, right? Questionable call. Like you're giving Josh Jacobs the ball so far deep in the backfield. You want to give him the ball heading downhill. Yeah. So even if the play blows up,
delayed counter,
it was terrible, dude. It's
4th and 1. Like,
well, it's just shotgun. Just do the freaking push, man. Like Favre's like a big kid, dude. Like he can stretch out and get.
Got his first touchdown that way. Doing a little push.
Look, you're just trying to outthink the room. Trying to outthink the room, right?
My question is Mark Davis doing this analytics? I doubt it.
I'll tell you Champ is.
Champ is, but he's not making the head coaching decision.
Well, I mean, if I understand that they want to work together, right? But still, you have to preserve your job and do your job as a GM. And sometimes your job as a GM, you can't excuse things. You have to call things out for what they are. Yeah. And definitely Champ, I'm assuming that Mark Davis and Champ have conversations about just in general what's going on. Mm-hmm. That's something that needs to be brought up. And if it is, he needs to tell the truth, which is, look, man, it's not his fault, but it's his responsibility. This is 2 games in a row now where we didn't do that great in the second half scoring points. We got to figure something out here. What is it? What's the disconnect? And it showed the last 2 weeks, second half has showed Coach Bo's inexperience for sure. He looked like, honestly, in the second half, like a high school coach, offensive coordinator. Mm. And it was like a bunch of flashy things just for the sake of being flashy. And I don't know, man. I don't know. I think that you saw the post game show. You know how I feel, right? So, I mean, what was your opinion of the second half play calling? What did you think?
Well, look, I mean, that's a separate conversation. I think there was a lot of poor. I think it was all kind of jumbled together. I think that's been the case for 4 straight games where Favre starts off hot last week and this week. He started like 10 of 11 with a touchdown last week. Was it 11 of 12 or whatever with a touchdown this week? Like he's starting off great. So it's pre-scripted opening drive or 2 where you got your first 10 plays down, right? He's great. The offense has been awesome. But then the second you're starting to make adjustments and go on the fly and start analyzing and you're having a back and forth with defensive coordinator, it's a game of cat and mouse and who's hot, who's not, who's injured, who's playing well. Like that's when it all falls apart. So it's this weird, like the playbook's like the initial game plan is executed, but then as soon as there's like a minor left turn, the car comes right off the rails. Right? It's like a train, not a car. Like if everything's on the rails going in one direction, we're good. The second we have to make an adjustment, it's an 11 car pileup on the 405.
So this is why that gives me cause for optimism. Okay. Mm-hmm. That tells me that when Favre is comfortable with the plays, he executes extremely well at an extremely high level. Mm-hmm. So the more times he sees certain defenses, the more time he gets executing different aspects of the playbook, right? Mm-hmm. Against different defenses, he's going to keep getting better and better because he's shown when he's comfortable with what he's running, which is he knows the script going in. He knows what he's going to run. He knows where his keys are, right? Well, once he gets that information, the more information he's able to download, the better he's going to be after the script.
Yeah. But to circle it all back to Mark Davis, I don't think he cares about any of the stuff that we're talking about. I think to him, we got blown out to a division rival.
That's what scares me, man.
I think that's what he's thinking. If I know Mark Davis, like I think I do, I think he's just like, we blew a big lead against a division rival. Unacceptable. I
mean, that's
imagine
true. I'm not
probably
saying that's not
something.
true, but you got to look at the reasons why, not just that we did. And I don't know that's his strong suit. Digging those layers deeper. But that's where you find the gold, man. That's where you find the good stuff, and that's where you make. The more information you have, the better decisions you make. Making decisions on just topical information. Just brushing the surfaces. You can get lucky, but you can also, make pretty bad decisions doing it that way.
Oh, you and I know that, but does a billionaire who inherited his father's company know that and go that way?
That's the
only
tough
thing that
part, man.
matters.
That's the tough part. But that's why you need to rely on people like Miss Prez, like Champ. Like we have to rely on those people to not be yes people, and to tell him, hey, we got to look at all these pieces of information. And we'll see, man. We'll see, because honestly, if he's relying solely on, if Mark Davis is relying solely on his group of advisors to make these big decisions, and he's not involving people who aren't yes people, like the president, like the GM, it can be another bad decision.
Time will tell. I guess to answer the question, how much does it hurt or help Antonio Pierce in our eyes? I think there's a lot of good that came out of that game. Just you're going against Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes, and the tight end that remain nameless, and that happens sometimes. But a division loss, blowout, everything else after that sounds like excuses, unfortunately. Even if it's statistically correct, it comes out as excuses.
Yeah, I mean, look, the game wasn't as when you take a look at how the game was played, it was just like he said in the past, it's a play here and a play there that if they go a different way, it could be a lot different outcome, right? Yeah. But you get that, and you see where things are going wrong in the second half, where you're up 14-0, and then you get outscored 31-3. Like you kind of see it going wrong. That's when, even though AP is not calling the plays, he needs to be the steadying influence on the play caller to focus on what we're doing well. What did we learn from the script? Work off of that, and not just have a little bit more of a game plan going with what you're calling. It just seemed like he was just throwing stuff out there.
Yeah.
It was almost like the anti-Josh McDaniels, where Josh McDaniels, I'm going to run this, we're going to run this again, and run it and run it and run it and run it, even though it's not working. And Coach Bo is just like the ping pong ball in the room, just bouncing all over the place. Yeah. And we're trying it here. We're going to play this. We're going to do that. We're going to do this. Like the coach from Coach Klein from Waterboy. Yeah. He just throws it back, and he throws it. No, wait. He thinks about throwing it, but he doesn't.
Well, one of the things that we really didn't have on Sunday was 100% Maxx Crosby. He was there by some kind of act of God. He did get a sack, but it was he was very.
That was a Kuntz freaking
Yeah, it fell into his lap.
Yeah.
Those sacks.
I'll take it, whatever.
Yeah, well, like I said, Lord knows that he's earned a lot of them. So when a couple of them fall into his lap, it's like, all right, we're still
in the negative. We're still in the negative, yeah.
Yeah, like Max is still he still should have had more sacks based on effort and technique and skill than he has, but was the only guy that can do any pressure on the defense, or on the line for a while. So anyway, point being, we found out why. We knew he was doubtful going with a knee injury. We had no idea how bad. On his The Rush podcast, he explained he got septic in the leg. I'm showing you a picture of how swollen it is on that knee. He was hospitalized. He said in his podcast he felt like he was going to die, bedridden, week of an NFL game, and he still played. That's so crazy.
Look, man, you know what a septic tank is? It's not a good thing. Yeah. You don't want that to be described in your body, okay? So when you go septic, basically your body is poisoned, and your body is poisoned to the point where your white blood cells cannot fight the infection, and it's basically a losing battle. The infection is taking over the parts of the body that's infected. Mm-hmm. So if you have an infected joint, like Maxx Crosby had, if left untreated, or if it just takes a wrong turn, he could have easily lost his leg. It was serious.
Scenario, yeah.
It was serious.
Yeah.
That's serious.
And there's different like variations of how septic something can be, right? Like, luckily he's a multimillionaire with like tons of trainers and the best possible doctors around him, so he can turn that thing around faster than the average human being.
Faster than most, yeah.
But just the fact that it was that bad and he still played, and how he let it get that. I mean, I get it where it's like, okay, it's swollen. It's the middle of a football season, right? You're going to have bumps and bruises and injuries, especially a guy that plays as hard, practices as hard, never misses a single snap like Maxx Crosby. He's probably used to every single bone, joint, tendon, toenail in pain every day. Like he probably has hair that hurts just from how hard he plays. And so you're like, oh, I got a swollen knee. Like, par for the course. It'd be weird if my knee wasn't hurting today. And so it kind of makes sense that he's just like, oh, it hurts, it hurts, it hurts. Oh my God, it turned into a septic tank. What's happening?
So you have the hangnails, right, in your fingers. And like you get that little pus ball kind of like forms on the side of your nail. Your finger is actually hot. Like it's warmer than the rest of your body, right?
Yeah.
You can't tell me that with an infection that large, before it went septic, he didn't notice that his knee was feeling a little hot. Or the trainers didn't notice that his knee was feeling like that's just, I don't know if he hid it from the trainers or something, but you can't not feel the infection if it's that big.
The rest of the D-line are like roasting marshmallows on his knee. Like, no, I'm good. We can play.
Let me get this ribeye real quick.
We're good to go. No problem. So on the coaching search discussion, and this is what I've always talked about with so often the Antonio Pierce discussion is, did he earn it or did he not earn it? When that should not be the question. And we have that discussion all the time. Like, did this help? Did it not help? But it should not be yes or no Antonio Pierce in a bubble. It should be, of all the available people out there, of all the possible head coaching candidates, is AP the best? That is how it should be approached. We always talk about this on my UFC show, where it's like, well, has this guy earned a title shot? It's like, there's no like script or prescription or rule book on you have now earned a title shot if you've done X, Y, Z. It's simply, who's the best out there? Who's the best option? Are guys hurt? Are guys unavailable? You know, oh, I got a 12-fight win streak. Well, this guy's got 13. It's like, oh, I only have a 1-fight win streak. Yeah, but you're the best one. You're the best guy available right now. That's how it should be looked at with Antonio Pierce. One of the other guys to keep out there, according to Las Vegas Review-Journal's Max Crosby, hearing a name to keep an eye on when Raiders go through head coaching search, former Stanford head coach, former Raiders assistant coach, David Shaw. This is the first time a beat writer this season has tied a specific name to the Raiders job. Now, why this happened? Who knows? This stuff doesn't leak on accident. It could simply be David Shaw calling up Vinny and saying, hey, throw my name out there. Or it could be something like Mark Davis or someone in the front office calls down to Vinny. Hey, I want to test the waters. I want to like dip my toe in I want to know what Raider Nation thinks of this name. So throw this out there. We know Vinny is extremely tied to the Raiders organization, almost to a fault, right? Like he's not going to say anything that the Raiders don't like. So this is out there for a reason. Now that it is out there, okay, all right, Vinny, we'll bite. What do you make of David Shaw, possible head coach of the Raiders in 2024?
I think that there are a lot worse candidates out there. I think he's actually...
That is a ring endorsement.
No. Hang on,
out of the gate.
Hang on.
You could do worse. Does Josh McDaniels have a brother?
I think that he's actually a pretty good candidate.
Okay.
People like to look at his fade late in his coaching career at Stanford. Mm-hmm. Now, being, we all know, being Pac-12 fans, right? We're the old Pac-12 at least.
Yeah.
Being
huge Washington State, Oregon State guys.
Right.
Big Pac-12 guys here.
Hey, they might be the big winners. They might get all the money for the Pac-12 next year. But
that'd be tough.
That'd be hilarious, right? They get paid more money than like the teams that left because they're splitting money to only.
Do you feel like a Big Ten team right now?
You know what? I'm not going to feel like a Big Ten team until we play like Nebraska in December at Nebraska. That's like those Wisconsin games, like those big old like outdoor, just at the big house, right? That's what I'm going to feel like a freaking Big Ten team.
So like I've had people ask me that, like, those who know, you're USC, I'm UCLA. And people ask me like, oh yeah, you're like Pac-12. What's that like? Oh, now you're in the Big Ten. How's it feel different? I was like, I never cared about conferences. Really? Like it was never like, obviously it's structured to care because you play those teams, right? You're going to play those teams. And if you win and you win the division or win the conference, and you move on. But it's like nothing ever felt Pac-12-y to me or Big Ten-y to me or SEC. It's just like kind of like the teams that are there. I don't know. Maybe I know I'm in the minority in that. Anyway.
Bro, I'm telling you something right now. Those crowds at those stadiums, they're not Pac-12 crowds, bro. Those are freaking, those are like, even the Nebraska, Wisconsin, like, those types of crowds, even those crowds are pretty freaking lit, bro. So it's going to be way different.
Yeah. That I know.
Way different. So look, David Shaw, when he took over, I heard it posed, and I'm not going to say who it was because he's a cool dude. I like him a lot. But he was saying that his success early on was coaching Jim Harbaugh's team.
Yeah, he was offensive coordinator.
He was offensive coordinator
when Harbaugh was killing it at Stanford for those. Yeah.
So Harbaugh leaves in 2010 to go to the Niners. So 2011 to last year, 22, Shaw had 11 wins, 12 wins, 11 wins. 8, 12, 10, 9, 9, 4, 4, 3, 3. Mm-hmm. So he had one kind of rough year in 14, but the other ones were all double digits. What we know that maybe some fans that aren't Pac-12 fans don't know is that Stanford and Cal around that time, they just stopped caring about sports. They just stopped caring about football. And they were a little bit tighter on the restrictions of how people can get in to Stanford. And so to now, I mean, with the new president they have there, they don't give two craps about sports and football and all that stuff. They really don't. Yeah. So it's hard to get into that school anyway. And now they're making it even harder with the transfers. Like they don't take JUCO transfers. So it was much harder to win at that type of school if you're David Shaw, especially in the late 20-teens. That's when it started getting really hard to win. But, you take a look at the first, 11, 12 of 23, 34, 42, 54 in the first 5 years, 54 wins in the first 5 years. It's almost 11 wins a season. So I don't know how long those Jim Harbaugh recruits are staying at Stanford, but not 5 years after he's already gone. So
they're getting their doctorates in biology.
He's still able to coach and recruit and build. I don't see that. I wouldn't take a look at his last few, maybe 4 or 5 years at Stanford and say, that's the type of coach he is. There's a direct correlation between the admissions restrictions and changes at Stanford and his ability to get players and his wins.
Well, I think he's got the resume more or less of a Raiders coach, right? Pac-12 player, Pac-12 coach, plenty of NFL experience, Oakland Raiders experience. I mean, the resume's there, right? It's like when you're like looking at like 2 years before an election, the Republicans and Democrats are looking at their guys. It's like, all right, who's got the resume, right? We'll worry about like who's hot, who's electable. Like, let's just get a resume. Like, who's got the right resume? And when you're making the list of guys, like at least just with the resume, he's got one.
Good one.
My big thing is, why are we going for the understudy of a guy who probably will be available in Harbaugh? Like, where are we going with the guy that was under him? Why aren't we going to the top? Why isn't that should be the focus? It should be the best, the absolute best. And if Harbaugh is going to be available, like I think he will, and like so many people think he will, that should be the target. Now, again, you don't zero in on one guy with no backups, but sure, have the name out there. Like I said, the resume is perfectly applicable to a guy to bring in and interview, walk around. Hey, say hi to the people that have been there for a while. You haven't seen in a while, like, okay, like that's a feel-good interview. right? Give it a shot, kick the tires. But I'd be way more excited if Harbaugh came and Shaw was the offensive coordinator. That would really pump me up. Imagine an offensive coordinator from Stanford and defensive coordinator from Yale. Look at the brainiacs going on in those meetings, right? That's what I'm talking about. That should be what we were talking about. Shaw is OC, Harbaugh HC.
So here's the issue with Harbaugh. Harbaugh is a firework.
Mm-hmm.
Harbaugh cannot stay at a place for too long because he rubs people the wrong way. And it's not just the players. It's other coaches. It's administration. It's front office people. He just rubs people the wrong way. And if you're looking for a long term, I think you get a coach that is, again, it's different because he hasn't been a head coach in the pros, but you get somebody who did just as well in college as Jim Harbaugh did, but you don't get the gruffness.
I would not agree that he did as well as Jim Harbaugh as a head coach. Harbaugh has won everywhere. Little program, big program, college, pro. Everywhere he has won. I don't know how many coaches can say that. Like, how many coaches can say they've won everywhere they've ever been? Like, Belichick can't say that. Like, the greatest coaches can't all say, like, no matter where I've gone, no matter what condition, no matter what the culture, no matter whether it's college or pro, I always win, no matter what. And that's like, we were talking about my curse the other day. Like, it takes an immovable object being an unstoppable force. Like, no matter who the Raiders have brought in for the last 20 years, it's just been awful. Haven't won the thing in 40 years. So it's like, how about like we test that, right? The Raiders, no matter who they bring in, we just can't win a Super Bowl in my life since I was 6 months old. So how about you go to somebody who always wins no matter where he goes? You're absolutely right. Like, he comes with his warts, but what coach doesn't? What coach doesn't have, like, well, here's a couple crucial errors about this person? Like, every coach has that.
No, I get it, but the thing is, you just got rid of a gruff coach.
A gruff coach with a long history of sucking.
Yeah, I get that, but you're noticing that your players are responding better to somebody who's a little bit more in tune with them. So you can get both of that with David Shaw. Am I saying he's the answer? No, I'm saying these are reasons why he would be a good selection.
I think there's plenty of good reasons why Shaw's a good selection, but I think the ones that matter the most, your history of winning, no one touches Harbaugh.
Shaw's won too.
Not like Harbaugh. Shaw's won. He's won everywhere. Like, he doesn't fall off. Like, he leaves.
Well, no, he did fall off, and he did fall off at Michigan. That's why they made him take a pay cut.
Well, he got suspended, and he only coached 6 games, but then they've bounced back. They've been, in the last 3 years, Michigan 12-2, 13-1, currently 9-0.
Okay, but keep going back.
He had that 2-4 year when he got suspended, but then it was 9-4, 10-3.
9-4 Michigan is not good. 8-5 is not good.
That's pretty good for Michigan standards. What were they before that?
No, it's not.
What were they before that? They always lost to Ohio State. They'd lose 1 or 2 other ones.
Okay, so
first season, 10-3 Citrus Bowl winners. Very first season.
Okay.
His first 6 seasons: Citrus Bowl, Orange Bowl, Outback Bowl, Peach Bowl, Citrus Bowl. Now he's lost. This is the thing.
He's lost. Look,
the thing. He's lost 6 straight bowl games.
Yeah.
I guess that's like the forget the gruffness.
Look,
he loses bowl games.
We have to take a look at too. Is you have to take his last few years with a grain of salt, because what's the reason he's going to be available after this season? More than likely, it's because he's going to be suspended for the entire next season because he's been cheating, which is. I mean, you have to take a look at that's maybe why he has the record that he has, because look at before the last couple of years. What was his record before the last couple of years? That's when he had to take the pay cut.
Okay. Name a coach that is better, though. Again, it goes back to like best available. Like, yeah, okay, here are the warts with Jim Harbaugh, and they should be addressed and worked on.
There's the X's and O's, and then there's the Willies and Joes. You get a guy in David Shaw that knows the X's and O's, and can also relate to the players a little bit better, relate to the front office a little bit better, be less abrasive, be less gruff, not be a freaking firework. I don't know, man. There's pluses and minuses. If you think that, let's just say, for sake of argument, David Shaw is 80% of the coach that Jim Harbaugh is, X's and O's wise, but Jim Harbaugh is only 50% of the diplomatic person who can interpersonal relations.
I'm not buying that he's this.
What are you talking about? That's the big knock on Harbaugh.
I'm not buying it.
That's the knock.
Not with his suspension. They were talking about after beating Ohio State.
They said that when he was back in Niners, man. He said it back when he was at the Niners. They said that.
Yeah.
That's not a Michigan thing. That's before then.
If it gets them to win,
I'm fine with it. Look,
it's like Belichick, right? Everyone hates him. Everyone hates it, but hey,
winning covers a lot. Right? Winning is the best perfume out there. Best cologne out there is winning, right? I get that. I understand that. But you're saying, well, he's the better candidate because of one thing, but that coaching is not just that one thing.
Next one. We're for some Raiders news. This is a little older, but we haven't touched on it yet. Our very thin and depleted defensive back room is even more thinner and depleted-er. I'm inventing new verbs for how thin our DB room's getting. Roderic Teamer set to come out of IR literally on Sunday to play for the Chiefs. Got a DUI,
not for the Chiefs,
against the Chiefs, right? For the Raiders. Got a DUI that morning. Apparently, he was very excited of being taken off injured reserve. He cut, no brainer.
He go.
We'll get to that. Marcus Peters, who has been the starter for us all season, brought in to be a leader, a ball hawk, a veteran guy, Pro Bowler. Yeah, he's lost a step or two, but he can still contribute. He has Olayed one too many times. Antonio Pierce had a conversation with him at halftime. He didn't play the second half, and now he's cut.
There you go.
No brainer on both of them?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
So starting with Teamer, look. Let's just kind of follow the rabbit trail, okay? You're going out late, and you're out early into the morning, the day of a game. That's bad enough.
Mm-hmm.
You're going out, and you're drinking the morning of a game. You're out drinking.
Yeah.
All right. You get behind the wheel of a car after you've been drinking the morning of a game.
Yep.
You are going at very high rates of speed while drunk, while being out the morning of, if you take a look at that, just all the bad decisions in a row after, and you're doing all this with the franchise who is trying to get in good with a new market and a player on your team a couple years ago who killed somebody for doing the same thing you were doing, maybe not to the extent. That's just an automatic, you're just too dumb to tie your own shoes. What are you doing?
This tells me, now these are both pretty close. I mean, Teamer seemed like, these are both firings for two very different reasons. Two cuts for completely different reasons, right? But they both tell me something similar about AP. He is a guy that it's been pretty well documented that players love, want to play for, enjoy. And the flip side of that sometimes is that you're not tough enough on them. You spoil them. You let them get away with stuff. They love you, but it's because you're making life easy on them. He has always said in multiple times since he's become head coach or interim head coach, said multiple times, yeah, I do that, but when it's time to work, it's time to work, and there's some things that are unacceptable. This is him walking the walk of the talk he's been talking. Players are going to love me. We're not going to travel early to Miami. We're going to give you the day off after a big win. We're going to go to you players for advice on what to do and game plans, and we're going to get you guys involved. I'm going to be your guy. But there's a line. And whiffing and olaying in a game where you've got opposing receivers crisscrossing us to death. Unacceptable. Getting drunk, driving, getting arrested, speeding the morning of a game. Unacceptable. This is a giant feather in the cap of Antonio Pierce. And I'm not a big guy of like, well, you got to make an example of him. It's like, case by case, some guys, blah, blah, blah. But this is him absolutely walking the walk of the talk he's been talking.
I've already talked about Teamer. The Marcus Peters tape he's been putting out there, I tweeted it before the Dolphins game. Dude, if he's going to play like that, you got to make a statement. You got to sit him. Mm-hmm. Because this is not a 1-2 week thing. This has been going on for a couple of months now, where he's just been Ole. He thinks he's a matador or something. He's just, Oleing everything out there. And there is a standard that you have to hold yourself to. You have to, as a coach, you have to hold yourself to that same standard. What am I willing to let happen? Because if something's wrong and I let it happen, it's my fault. It's not the player's fault. It's the coach's fault for letting it happen. Putting him back out there with the same type of effort and the same type of result over and over and over again tells the rest of the team it's okay if you don't give that good of effort if you have a resume, if you've been in the league for a while, if you've been made plays in the past, that it's okay to not give 100% effort. That is a bad precedent to set. So I think this was a great move by Antonio Pierce. You had to just shut it down. I think it should have happened a couple of weeks ago, because if you and I caught it on tape, they're actually watching this tape over and hours and hours and hours. There is no way they didn't know this was happening over and over again. Absolutely ridiculous. He's dropping. He should have had 3 pick sixes this year. He's dropped 2 of them, and then another one actually caught him. Yeah. So it's sad that it had to happen this way, because Marcus Peters is such a Raiders type of guy. But you have to, like in the video that we put out maybe like a month ago or so, when the Twos was talking, the Raiders are known for being the hardest workers and for doing whatever they can. They were doing whatever they can to get the job done. Mm-hmm. That's what the Raiders are known for. The hardest workers to get and doing what they need to do to get the job done.
When all your leaders are like that, right? Bro. Max, Jacobs, Davante, you can't be the leader that doesn't lead by example.
If anyone on the team knows what being a corner for the Raiders means, the type of effort and the way you have to play, it's Marcus Peters. And there's no way he was giving people just way too much cushion, and he was not trying to attack. He was making Marcus Peters business decisions. He wasn't making Raiders business decisions.
He was cashing a check this season.
He was cashing a check. He was mailing in. He wasn't trying to give up big plays, but he wasn't making plays he should have made either. So I hate to see it happen, because I'm a big fan of anyone who is a big fan of the Raiders. And unfortunately, he got to play for the team that he's always wanted to, and maybe he's like Rocky. He's like in Rocky and Rocky 3. He's a little bit too much. He got domesticated. Like, that's the worst thing that happened, Rock. To happen to you, that could happen to a fighter.
There was setups. No, there weren't setups. There was good fighters. There weren't killers like this guy. He'll knock you into tomorrow, Rock.
Yeah.
Speaking of big plays, Desean Jackson announced his retirement. One of the biggest speedsters of the last 2 decades in the NFL. Just a dude that flew. Punt returner in his prime. Long time with the Eagles. Obviously, he had a little stint with the Raiders. Announces his retirement through the Eagles website. What is his legacy to you as a Raider, Desean Jackson?
As a Raider?
As a Raider. I don't care about the rest of it.
Freaking fumbling that ball and that long pass against the Chiefs. What are you doing, dude?
Yeah.
Running backwards? Like, what are you doing? You're fast.
Just finding ways to get hurt, right? Catching the ball, and then if there isn't just a bunch of open grass, just diving down to the floor so you don't get hit.
Yeah, his legacy as a player overall is just his speed.
Yep.
He's an old school type of speedster in the NFL. Just run deep and we'll just huck it up to you.
Yep.
And he was able to play that way, in a league that really isn't built that way. It isn't built to just chuck the ball deep all the time, and that's what he was. He's because of the way football was played in the past. He's not like super. I think he's like 39th in like average yards per catch, but it's like almost 18 yards per catch for his career. But it's definitely a lot more than what you see around the league right now. But as a Raider, there's that game against the Cowboys where he took that crossing,
went crazy.
He just dipped after that. But it just I don't want to look at his Raider career honestly, because that just he was still fast, but he just wasn't what he was. That punt return against the Giants, when they actually punted to him, like, what are you doing? You're kicking to the best kick returner in the league, and he ran it back and won the game. Like, yeah, I want to do that. But yeah, man, he's definitely a strong freaking player, man. One of the best, most electric players in the league at his time. And Jackrabbit, Long Beach Poly.
Yep, right down the street from me. Eric Allen made the Hall of Fame cut to 25, right? Technically, they call it the semifinals, right? Final 25. Again, a guy who ended his career with the Raiders, but he was with the Raiders during those really great early 2000s.
He was a big reason why.
He was like, when that defense was kicking, he was a huge chunk.
He was Epps, man. He came from the Eagles.
He was another Eagle guy. So here's the list. It's tiny if you can't see it, of the top 25. Not a ton of guaranteed guys getting in, right? There's not like a lot of just like multiple Super Bowl winning quarterbacks where you're like, all right, this guy's definitely getting in, but it's going to be an uphill battle.
There's a lot of good names on there.
A lot of good names. Again, not a lot of massive for sure's, right? You do have, I would say, Antonio Gates, one of the best tight ends ever. I think he'll be in.
So what I do is I look at all pros. You got to look at Willie Anderson for all pros. Willie Anderson's up there. Antonio Gates is up there. Both Harrisons are up there. James and Rodney Harrison are up there. You take a look at
Wolford.
I haven't gotten down there yet. Wolford, yeah. Phillips Wolford. Fucking Darren Woodson. Like these Patrick Willis, like almost every year he was an all-pro.
Steve Smith is like famous, you know what I mean? Like everyone loves
famous.
him.
It's gonna take a while for him to get in, but
he's gonna get in because people love him.
Yeah, but these other guys, the guys that I mentioned, those are like multiple handfuls of all pros almost every single year. So it's going to be tough for Eric Allen to get in there on the first, not the first try, but get in there. But he's definitely, I think he's deserving of going in there. But this group, it doesn't have quarterbacks in it, but it has some guys that are just, I mean, they were the tip top of their position for years.
Yeah. We're rooting for you. I think it's going to be another probably 2 cycles, I'm going to guess.
Yeah, dude, those guys that I mentioned, those guys were like top guy at their position. Like, who's the best X in the league? Okay, it's this guy.
Yep.
Those guys were in the conversation for quite a few years.
Yep. We're gonna do some What Up Windbags?
Yeah, why not?
G360 Live. Let me ask you this. Is there a difference between a veteran play caller and a rookie play caller? If so, then we can say play calling is part of the issue because our offensive coordinators only called plays in 4 NFL games. So we have a rookie play caller, a rookie quarterback, and a rookie head coach. So I pulled this out of you're having a longer conversation with G360 Live. I like this conversation. It's like, oh, you got to protect your rookie quarterback. It's like, well, do we got to protect our rookie offensive coordinator? Do we have to protect our rookie interim head coach? Do we have to, like, how many protections can we do here? And I think that's a good conversation to have.
So this conversation was about I was flabbergasted after the game that we stopped giving Josh Jacobs the ball. He got, I think, 10 carries the first 2 drives of the game, and he got 10 carries the rest of the game.
Yep. And
the game was close. Like, it was a 4-point game going into the fourth quarter. So it wasn't like, we were so far down that we couldn't make up the difference. It was a tight game until the fourth when the Chiefs scored 10 and we didn't score any, and then it made it 14 points. So I think that Coach Bo gets really caught up in a scheme that he wants to run, and he knows, oh, this play is designed for this. This play can work to get this.
Yeah.
And he loses track of what helps his passing game become the most effective, which is still giving the ball to Josh Jacobs. And So as far as all the rookies we're talking about here, that's where kind of that critical thinking comes into play, where that levels of awareness. I think AP has to tell, Coach Bo, hey man, keep it simple, stick to what works, stick to what we're doing good. Because when we got away from that is when we stopped scoring.
There's one rookie you can't protect, and that's Antonio Pierce. He needs to step up.
Yeah, it all falls at his feet, unfortunately. I'm not trying to say all his fault.
And he's the one with the biggest job interview currently, right? AOC, he's going to have a job for a while, career backup. Does he have a starter one day? Time will tell, but he's proven he's not getting kicked out of the league after this year. He's got a future. What that may be is still up there. Bo's super young. He's still, his career is just getting started. He's fine. AP's the one on trial here, if you want to say it. So he's the guy you can't protect. He's the guy that needs to cowboy up.
He's the guy that needs to progress faster than the rest, because he's the one that ultimately it all falls at his feet.
And he's the one with the biggest rewards at the end of the rainbow if he does.
For sure.
So, George Nelson, 8284. I definitely think it's time to go get Harbaugh. AOC, the jury is still out, but we should look to upgrade at quarterback in the draft. We kind of touched on this earlier. I think going after Harbaugh full court press should be done, regardless of how Antonio Pierce does. If Antonio Pierce crushes it and he wins the interview and he's the guy and players love him, great. Hell yeah. But by no means should we be ignoring other candidates just because AP has got the locker room on his side.
Let me ask you this. How gun shy do you think Mark Davis is going to be? Because Harbaugh's not going to come cheap. How gun shy do you think he's going to be having to give Harbaugh another huge, long deal to leave where he is now?
It's funny you brought that up, because I remember hearing you could tell who secretly was friends with Josh, not secretly, but guys were kind of friends with Josh McDaniels, wanted to succeed. There's certain guys that were kind of in his corner, and they're like, well, you can't get rid of him because you're setting a precedent that if you come to the Raiders, you're getting fired. And who wants that kind of job? You mean you get to work for a year and a half and you get paid for 6 years? Everyone on planet Earth wants that job. Don't act like firing all these coaches and still paying their contracts is going to disgruntle coaches from coming here. It's literally the opposite. Hey guys, come swindle this billionaire in a bowl cut, fumble around for a couple years, and he'll pay you out for the rest of your contract.
He doesn't have a bowl cut anymore. He's got a mullet. It's
no, I don't think this discourages anybody. I don't think Mark Davis is gun shy at all. He's already written these checks. He's got a checkbook. He's not. That's huge. He's not used to having with all the PSLs and how much tickets he's selling. I don't think at all. I think the checkbook's wide open. Bank account's open, man. Mark Davis is standing there with 2 burlap sacks full of gold bullion with the dollar sign on it. Saying, who wants to win me a Super Bowl? Prove it to me. Bam. There's your money.
I'm just concerned about how the players will react, especially the players who have been here through the 2 coaching changes. When the team is this is the kind of guy we can play and win for, and you bring in another guy that maybe isn't as player friendly.
I'm less concerned. I think the leaders are pros, and the rest will get behind them. I think Max, Davante, Josh, if he's still around, I think these are guys that are this is how it works in this league. Lord knows the Raiders know what it's like to have coaches come and go and just have to keep going. Lord knows they know what it's like.
Let me ask you this. If you bring in a new head coach next year, right? Let's say you bring in, it doesn't matter. Let's say it's
keep AP as linebacker coach.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Well, let's say you bring in let's say you bring in Harbaugh, right? Mm-hmm. What you said, Harbaugh and David Shaw, right? As OC. Okay. Together again. Janet Jackson. What do you do with Davante Adams?
I think it depends on the quarterback. If we get a good quarterback in the draft, or we trade for somebody, I think that's going to matter the most.
Does he want to play for a rookie quarterback?
If it's
another one,
sick one, maybe it's a sick one. I mean, and there's no ultimates, right? If the Jets are like, hey, Aaron Rodgers is back for one more season, we're going to go in debt for the next 5 to try to win a Super Bowl now.
Here's a like, 1. Right, here's a 1 and 2.
Here's a 1, 2, and another play or whatever, right? Like here's a 1 and like one of our multiple defensive tackles that are amazing that you guys desperately whatever. Like everyone's for sale. Everyone's for sale.
Yeah, I had this conversation with somebody, and they're like, "No, like, because look, I'm of the opinion that you keep your best players happy, and you keep your best players. You don't you want to get players that are that caliber, but you also have to think for the future too, and you have to think, hasn't been slowing down. He has a type of game that's not going to erode quickly, but you want to get the assets too, and you want to start building positions, right?
I think it's more or less like what you want to do as the Raiders. And I think it's more like you'll have to do what Davante wants. Like I think if Davante,
I think that's the big. That's definitely, you're right. That's definitely the biggest thing. Which is a good thing. He's still if that happens, I really don't hope it does. I want to keep him, but if it does, it couldn't be. It can be not a bad thing.
This might be the best.
The best?
Best what a Windbags we've ever had.
First
off, his name, Diva Tamer, 94.
Ooh, damn.
Great. O-line, O-line, no line, O-line. 1 run, 2 run, 3 run, no fun. Illuminor's a swinging door. He hits the floor. Can't block no more. Left side, right side, doesn't matter, right side. I'd forgotten about Van Roten. Cannot push. He lacks the tush. Can't remember why he got hired. Should be dropped. Yes, he should be fired. James is lame. Always the same. He cannot play. His game's too tame. Oh, what a shame. We're stuck with James. There's no one else left here to blame. Colton is badass, though. Dr. Seuss.
That's pretty badass. That was good, man.
Diva Tamer, if you're listening, you're hired. You are now our new writer of the Autumn Windbags. No game this week. Bye week. Chance for everyone to kind of lick their wounds a little bit. Great opportunity for this entire new coaching staff to catch a breath, right? Just, okay.
Players get healthy.
Players get healthy. Coaches catch a breath.
This is the last bye week too. So we had the very last bye week.
Very late bye week.
Same as the Vikings too, though. So it's
not the only ones.
Yeah.
But so a lot to we'll have plenty of time to digest and dive deeper. We won't be just like chasing games the next week and a half, 2 weeks. So we'll have a chance to dive deeper and get some more great analysis for you guys, as we always do. Until then, knock on wood if you're with me. Hey, you made it to the end of our video. Great job. I know you want more. Go ahead and click the next video. And if you're feeling crazy, go ahead and subscribe.